Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Deciding to Soar, where we have conversations that help us be who we were born to be so that we never settle for what society has taught or told us to be. And if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Sharon Jameson. I am a corporate leader, a life strategist, a healer, author, a minister, and a mom. And I combine spirituality and strategy with healing and politics and social conditioning and all of the ways that influence how we navigate and operate in the world so that we can name systems and structures that impact all of us and limit us are sometimes systems and structures that we can leverage so that we can be who we were created to be. And so today I want to share some highlights from some workshops that I have been conducting over the last month about ways that we become silent and the reasons why we become silent about what we need, what we want, what we desire, what we feel called to do, and how can we address the ways that we have embraced unknowingly silence? How can we identify when we are lowering our erasing our voice from important conversations that we not only have with others, but conversations that we have with ourselves so that we can take our power back, so that we can operate with greater agency, so that we can feel empowered to walk in clarity and courage, so that we can create lives and make decisions that honor our very souls. So, if you've been around, you know that I love to have acronyms because acronyms help us not only remember words, but also help us embrace words in our mind, in our spirits, in our souls. And so in the workshops, I talk about the acronym SILENT to help us understand and identify how we have been programmed to be silent in our own lives about what we need and what we want. The S in silent stands for social norms. We have learned how to be in life by watching others. For example, I shared in the workshop that I remember walking down the street and holding my grandmother's hand. And when some white people came by and walked by us, I remember me and my grandmother, who are black, stepping aside to let them walk past us. And it gave me a message that some people were more important than other people. And that message was further solidified by going with my grandmother when she was working as a domestic. And I saw that the children called my grandmother by her first name, but my grandmother referred to the children who had to be 5 or 6 years old by Miss and Mrs. or Master. And I saw that there was a difference of stature or a hierarchy based on color. And so even before I had language, I had an understanding based on what I saw of what was considered normal, what was considered normal functioning, what normal interaction looked like between people who of different races. And I share those examples during the workshops to help you think about your life and to ask yourself, are you silent about what you need, what you want, because you have learned social norms about what it means to be a certain gender, a certain sexual orientation, a certain faith, a certain race, a certain age, a certain ability? Um, have you embraced some traditional uh, concepts that are traditions based on the 1800s and not truths that we should be uh, living our lives by in 2024? Or have you learned something based on a culture conditioning, or a cultural programming that gives you rules, our standards, our responsibilities that have a way of shrinking your life down to live in a box, to live by a certain set of practices and policies and perspectives that make life feel like a prison and not a playground. So I want you to think about the social norms. And remember, social norms are things that we are taught, are messages that we have caught by watching others. So social norms. The I in silent are images. Throughout our lives, we have seen images that gave us messages about who we are. For example, as a little black girl, I always had images of beauty that did not look like me. I always saw images of God that did not look like me. I always saw pictures of people who were successful who did not look like me. And because I saw those images, I unconsciously thought that those images were the blueprint or the templates that determine how I should navigate in the world. And so if I had needs, if I had desires that did not fit the template or the blueprints that I experienced or witnessed throughout my life, I did not share. I did not ask. I did not advocate for myself. I did not challenge the norms because I didn't know that I could. So images. So the question is, what have you seen throughout your life that you have used as a guide, as an instruction, as a narrative, as an example, as a model that said that you had to be a certain way? And how has that model made you minimize your needs, your voice, your desires for your life? The L in silence stands for lies. We all have been taught a history that was not based on the truth or reality. Especially in America, we have been taught history that has erased the contributions of brown and black people. We have been taught a history that has demonized indigenous people and their practices and their way of life. We have been taught a history that has demonized other brown people and other black people. We have been taught lies about different sexual orientations and genders, and we have been taught lies about people who have different types of abilities about their value. So throughout our lives we have been taught lies that, for example, one faith tradition is the only way to engage God. And because we have been taught those lies, we have imbibed and inculcated those messages. And sometimes we become silent because even though what we know to be true in our hearts may be different for what we have learned, but we start to feel like we are wrong. We start to distrust our guts, our own internal wisdom. And so we look for external factors as truth, and we erase what we know to be true about ourselves. And so here's the challenge. When we continue to learn lies about who we are, we start to label ourselves. And anytime you label yourself, you limit yourself. And so that is the L in silence, and how we have to unlearn being silent, how we have to unlearn social norms and unlearn narratives and unlearn the lies that cause us to label and limit ourselves. The E in silence stands for elevation and elimination. I talk about this a lot in my workshops because we become silent and we start to not trust our truth, and we start to think that we are not important because throughout our lives we see that different opinions and different people have are elevated in our society. What they think, how they believe, how they act, they are elevated. And then we see that some people are eliminated. And so we are seeing what's happening, even if we don't have language for it, even if we don't acknowledge it, we see what's happening. And so if that happens a lot throughout our lives, where some thoughts are elevated as true and some people are eliminated because they are not seen as worthy or valuable, we start to become silent about what's important to us. And we have to unlearn those perspectives so that we can take our voice back. The N stands for neutralize and nullify. One of the ways that voices are neutralized and nullified is that when we become invalidated. We may have become invalidated when we were children, when we told people how we felt, and people said, oh, be quiet, it's not that important. We may have been invalidated in school systems, faith systems. We may have been invalidated in our own families because we were deemed not important, our children were to be seen and not heard, or we felt that we were too different, and so that people did not really hear us and or care about what we said. And so what happened was we started to understand that our opinions were not as important, and our thought processes were not as important. And so we just started to not share, to lower our voice, to lower our gaze, to lower our own expectations of a better life. And the T in silent is threats. We become silent because we know that if you speak your mind and if you have a different opinion that's different than the majority or the dominant group, you, you can lose your job, you can lose your life, you can lose loved ones, you can lose your status, you can lose your resources, you can lose your connections. And so when we feel threatened, we don't share. We don't express. We don't advocate. And so all the challenges about being silent is something that we have to be able to name, because silence leads to self-doubt, because we start doubting what we feel is true. At least it infringes on our dignity when we have to keep shrinking our humanity or erasing parts of our humanity and parts of our identity to fit into whatever the norm or image lies, or what's being elevated. We have to shrink our sense of selfhood, since we have to keep neutralizing who we are because there's a threat of being kicked out, rejected, or punished. And we have to be careful, because silence, if we don't address it or acknowledge it, we start to stop thinking for ourselves. We start to go along to get along. And anytime we don't speak up for ourselves, anytime we don't feel heard or acknowledged or seen, we start to suffer. We start to feel isolated. We start to feel alienated. We start to feel as if nobody cares. We feel like we are outcast. And so we have to make sure that we are aware of all the different aspects of the acronym SILENT, so that we know that we have an opportunity to challenge all of the things that we have learned. We have an opportunity to speak up for ourselves, and we have an opportunity to learn how to use our voice and how to navigate social rules and structures and systems, so that we can regain agency in our lives, because we deserve to have an existence beyond survival. And what silence does, it makes us just survive and settle, and it does not allow us to care about ourselves, to care about others, to care about our own perspectives. It does not allow us to exist in a way that makes us feel proud of ourselves, nor exist in a way that allows us to feel good about who we are. So we have to speak up. We have to understand that silence is a form of internal violence. It's a form of interpersonal violence and collective violence and institutionalized violence. And when we start to learn that our voices matter and to understand that it's okay to inject our voices in places that we are not even invited, because what we need to say needs to be said, we will become not only advocates for ourselves, we will become allies for others, and we will have an opportunity to co create a different type of world where people feel seen, heard, known, affirmed, appreciated, respected, so that we can honor our own narratives, but also honor the narratives of others. So again, silence means social norms, images, lies that result in labels and limitations. It's a process or perspective of elevation of some and elimination of others. It means neutralize and nullify people's perspectives, views, and thoughts. And it also means threats. And so that's something I want you to think about. Again, let's continue to have this conversation in our community about ways to unlearn silence so that we can speak our minds and we can um, honor our talent and our gifts, so that we can live more fully and honestly, and that we can honor our humanity as well as honor the humanity of others. I hope this blesses you. Let me know your thoughts. Please reach out to Sharon at SharonJameson.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to learn from you, because we are on this learning, self liberation, self reclamation journey together. Blessings to you.